Welcome to the Hastings Shadmary Show.
I'm Andee Hastings.
And I'm Mallie Shadmary.
Together, we own Hastings Shadmary, an Atlanta-based law firm specializing in family law.
This is a space where we talk all things family law and all topics that touch the area of family law, from divorce to custody to self-growth, personal empowerment, and more. We bring you the truth, from our wolf pack to yours.
Hello, and welcome to the Hastings Shadmary Show. I'm Andee Hastings, and Mallie is in court today, but thankfully we have a wonderful guest that has agreed to join us today, Jill Heineck, and we are going to talk about a very important topic that affects family law, and that is real estate, specifically the fact that Jill is a certified divorce real estate expert. Jill, hi. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I want to have a talk about what you do, how you do it, what's involved to help our watchers and listeners get a better understanding, because I think what you do is so valuable. Let's start with your business, Heineck & Associates. Where are you located?
So we are based in Brookhaven. We work all over the metro area for the most part. In the event that the marital residence is not in our general geography, we have partners who are qualified to help us be client-facing in those geographic areas. So we cover a lot of ground.
I jumped ahead too. I ask questions for a living. Just take my word for it, okay? So y'all are in real estate. Generally, but specifically, what is your expertise? What do you do?
I am a certified divorce real estate expert. We, and as a CDRE, we support the family law community in real estate matters with divorce cases, and we do that as a neutral, unbiased third-party expert. So our training has been pretty intense with realtors who have only done divorce listings their entire careers and have figured it out and provided the blueprint, in addition to attorneys and judges and psychologists as well. So we've been trained to be neutral, to understand the different personalities involved in divorce cases, which also is very transferable in traditional real estate cases or listings. So it's all been very eye-opening and has been very impactful in my business, but also in the greater Atlanta family law community, because I am the fifth to be certified in Georgia, and there's only three or four of us actively working in the Atlanta market at the moment. So I'm very excited to be part of the advisory or the faculty of the certifying organization, because I am helping to build out our partnerships within the metro area for certified divorce real estate experts. So that is one thing that I'm working on right now, to find the right partners.
I have so many questions. She's such a gem. You all are so lucky to have her today. So you said something a minute ago that I wanted to ask you about. You said you made reference to having people who have worked with real estate transactions pertaining to divorce their entire careers, and they have the blueprint on that. Tell me what you mean by that.
So our founder of the certifying organization has never done any traditional business. She's only done divorce. And she kind of broke the mold in her market in California, where she was kind of flip-flopping around, didn't know how to serve, and learned by doing. And making lots of mistakes, and then building that blueprint as she went along, and felt like it's so important for divorcing couples to have an expert helping them move that marital residence along so that they can unlock the equity and move on with their lives. And to have this specific training and expertise around that, she felt was very important. And the mission, which is a very big, lofty mission, is to have every divorce listing in the United States of America be handled by a CDRE, Certified Divorce Real Estate Expert. So we are slowly growing. The certification's been in existence for about 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
So really, really new. And so expanding as quickly as we can, but also they're very selective. You have to meet certain criteria. You can't be someone who is not a full-time agent or someone who is just selling a couple of houses here and there.
No dabblers.
No dabblers. Very serious, lots of expertise. There's a complete intake and vetting conversation on the front end. It's time intensive as well as resource intensive. Mm-hmm. So if you want to break into this niche, you have to be a particular kind of person, a business person who wants to do that.
Right.
And you really have to want to serve.
I find that's true. Anybody touching family law. So
This is not like a 30-day transaction where you're in and out.
Right.
Most of the time.
Right.
So you've got to think about this as the long game. You're building relationships inside of the family law community. And then you are also packing your patience when you're working on an actual case.
Yeah, so we say often amongst ourselves here, and we tell clients this, typically we're dealing with great people that are in very difficult situations. Yes. So, when you say packing your patience, sometimes that's for them to meet them where they are.
That's right.
So speaking of, you mentioned that, there's a lot of training involved. Tell me what it takes to become a CDRE. I'd really love to know.
So the initial intensive is about 12 weeks. It's every single week you have a lesson. You are taking an exam. You are on calls. So you're basically budgeting about 10 hours a week initially just to get through the program, to do the homework, to do the tasks required to start building out what your niche is going to look like in your market. Mm-hmm. Our final exam was an oral as a witness. So part of
a testifying witness?
Correct.
Okay.
So I was on with an attorney who was acting as the judge, and she was making sure that I was the right witness for being on the stand. The expert witness.
Pressure.
Right. And this was a couple weeks prior to that, you are working through creating your CV, which most realtors do not have.
Right.
So this was quite an exercise after, I've been in this industry 27 years. And that was probably the last time I did a CV was 27 years ago or more. So this was a great exercise to really kind of look back and say, okay, I've accomplished more than I ever imagined, because you don't think about it on your day-to-day.
Right.
And so it also helps when you do that exercise with your CV. It builds confidence to shows that you are the expert. You do have the backing of your experience, and you can help these people in a very impactful way.
It seems to me, just on what we were going off of earlier, you are a true diplomat every single day. Your diplomacy skills are probably at the forefront of everything that you do. Is that fair?
It is, and I'm still working on it. Coaching consistently and through our organization as well. I have a business coach, but I also coach through our certifying organization because they offer this program post-class, once you get certified, and it's constant sharing of case studies. On how to handle certain instances, and they're all different across all markets.
Absolutely.
But we're all in the same kind of boat. So it's been
Right.
fantastic for me to really see how other people handle a situation where I might have been frozen and not really know which way to go.
Sure.
I would say there's very few of those cases where I'm not sure what to do, but do not claim to know it all, and I'm a learning-based person. And if you're not a learning-based person, this is probably not the niche for you. This is continually, you're going down this journey for yourself, but also with your clients, and it's changing constantly. So we have constant coaching on a monthly basis. So in addition, I said 10 hours when you're launching this niche and learning and getting through the program, but then it's probably 10 plus post certification because you are continually having to hone your skills, and then you're out talking to the community.
Right.
So it's time intensive.
Right.
And you just have to be ready for it.
And you've got the added challenge of being a neutral. which I imagine, and I want to ask you more questions about this, can be really challenging in a situation that is often characterized by great divides. So, you're playing a role that a lot of people don't in that situation. So I'm sure it's challenging for people to maybe kind of switch gears when they're dealing with you and they're used to having an advocate and their lawyer and that sort of thing. But what I want to ask first is, how do you get into cases? What's the usual way that you enter, and when do you prefer?
So as of late, it's been, I'm usually recommended to the case by at least one of the attorneys. And what I'm also finding is that if they're getting to mediation, the mediator is also recommending me to the case. And sometimes both attorneys and the mediator have mentioned me for the case, which is exactly where I want to be. I want to be top of mind because I want to be the one to help these families move towards resolving their cases. So that has been really eye-opening because I feel like, when you're doing all this kind of touching and letting people know you're here, is it falling on deaf ears, or is it really working? And many different people have mentioned to me that it's working. They're hearing what I'm having to offer, helping you as the family law community write tighter side agreements so that when it comes to the real estate piece of the divorce agreement, it's clear and it's realistic for the actual real estate professional to help. Because a lot of times we're getting those agreements where they're not realistic in practice. So we're getting out there and trying to spread the good word of how we can help tighten up that language to help, in turn, help you get less calls and us be able to really work it in reality and move that case forward.
So, and speaking of that, you referred to side agreements. And just for our watchers and listeners, tell me what you mean by that.
The side agreement, in my opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I already know. So
the side agreement is typically the directives on how to manage and sell the marital residence. And it's typically not filed at the court. And it is basically my directives on what dates and timelines and things we're supposed to follow with in regard to the sale of the marital residence. Now, whether or not that is realistic based on the date that I received the call and the agreement is another question. But that is what I use as a guideline. And then if I need to refer back to counsel or clarify something with the parties, I do that. But a lot of the times that's kind of the starting point.
Right. So what we refer to those as, different attorneys refer to them as different things. It's all the same thing. It's a real estate side agreement, a real estate side addendum, or whatever.
Right.
And the reason we file it separate from the formal settlement agreement, well, we don't file it actually. We do it separate from the formal settlement agreement, which does get filed, is because in this day and age of things being publicly searchable, and divorce records being accessible online, what you don't want to have is a situation where parties are selling a property and buyers can go search and see, oh, well, if I wait 30 days, they've agreed they're going to reduce the price by this, or those sorts of things. Just for anybody who wasn't familiar with that, there is a method to all of our madness. And to that end, what are examples of the types of things that people could expect to address in their side agreement if they're selling property?
One would be the appointment of a CDRE or a realtor that's going to be the neutral party representing the equity in the residence.
Right.
So I look at myself as the protector of equity. And you want someone with this expertise to help you protect the equity. What we find is when there's not an appointed CDRE in the agreement, that the agent or realtor is not thinking neutrally, it's not thinking about what the parties are going through. This is not a Churnham and Burnham type of deal.
Right.
This is a little bit more sensitive. You have to, again, be patient with the process and know that it could take much longer than 30 days. So, and to your question earlier about when we want to be appointed, it's early on. So we're talking when you're thinking about intake, you're thinking about initial conversations. That might be part of your conversation with a new client is, have you thought about the sale of the residence? Do you have a relationship with a realtor? And a lot of times people do. Everybody knows a realtor. Everybody knows the person that sold them the house, et cetera. But sometimes that is not an appropriate avenue when you're going through a divorce and selling the marital residence. In fact, I get a lot of calls not only from attorneys, but other realtors who are representing or being represented by family law attorneys asking me to help them sell their houses because it's a conflict for them to list their own property.
Right.
In fact, I got one of those calls yesterday. So it definitely calls for someone with this expertise.
Right.
And earlier is better than later.
Which makes complete sense. And, I guess the further into the case you get, the more potentially emotions are high. People have dug into their positions.
Right.
They may not be as receptive to that sort of neutral, calm voice in the process. So,
the other thing to think about before you even appoint somebody to help with the residence, think about the conversations around equity division. Mm-hmm. The averaging of Zillow and Realtor.com values online is probably not the best way to go. So as a CDRE, I offer to our family law community to run a desktop market analysis so that it's much more realistic. The chances are I've probably showed in the neighborhood or sold in the neighborhood that you're going to be where the marital residence is, and I can give you a much more realistic value to start conversations with your client versus just willy-nilly all over the internet.
Right.
So that's one thing a lot of attorneys have kind of leveraged with me. It's literally a call or an email, and I can turn it around pretty quickly. So it definitely helps with those initial conversations around equity.
And how long have you been in real estate?
This is my 27th year. It's scary to say that out loud.
Girl.
But here we are.
Yes. I've been in law about the same amount of time. So I feel you. Yeah. It's like somebody asks you and you say it out loud and you're like, wait a second. Like that's a whole adult human.
Yes, exactly.
But, it's a fact when you've been around doing what you're doing for that long, you literally probably have been in most neighborhoods all over the city.
I started my career in corporate relocation, and as a baby agent, fairly new to the Atlanta market, I took every opportunity that was given to me. So it took me everywhere. I was selling with Norfolk Southern in Douglasville.
Oh, wow.
And then I was selling with Siemens in Alpharetta, and everywhere in between, UPS, you name it, I was working with corporate executives moving. So it took me all over the city, which helps both when I'm representing a seller and a buyer, because now I know what the buyer's market's looking for in a property and what the sellers are going to have to prepare themselves for when the buyers are looking at their property. Right. So there's a lot of benefit to the client with all the experience that I bring to the table.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me, I know why, but why is it a long game when you're acting as a CDRE and you're in divorce cases? Why is it not just a one and done sort of situation?
So the long game, it's twofold. One is you're building relationships inside of the family law community, so that takes time. Nobody wants to be sold to. We all want to know how we can help each other. So I want to be an integral part of the family law team of experts that is moving cases forward. Not every person is cut out for that because you are looking at, I'm heading into this will be 2 years in a few months that I've been certified. And I've made a lot of headway in 2 years. But that has not been the case for some of my colleagues in other markets because their markets are smaller or not as receptive, and this can happen with any market anywhere. So you just have to be really focused and I think, confident in the reason why you're doing it.
Right.
So that's one part of the long game. The other part is when you're actually in a case and you're signing your agreements with the clients, and they're like, yes, we want to be on the market, in 30 days or less. Well, life happens.
Right.
And those things usually the house takes a backseat when life happens. And so what's today, the 20th of August? We could potentially be on the market in 2 weeks, but then one of the parties decides they don't like the agreement and they want to change it. Then I'm possibly 2 or 3 months out.
Right.
And so you're in a holding pattern, and you just have to be okay with that.
Well, I'm sure it's an extra challenge just being in the divorce process, like you said, because people are at one place and then, things happen in a case and tensions rise. And so it's just it's an ever shifting dynamic.
And especially when you add kids into the mix.
Oh, right.
So that could delay it even longer. We've
Right.
had a case where, and I'm sure you've come across this, where the parties just don't want the kids to know yet.
Right.
And so that delays it because they're either waiting for the right time, which when is the right time? They want to wait till school's out and they can take the kids away for the summer and then,
Right.
potentially put the house on the market while they're not there and having to deal with it. So there's a lot, like you said, moving parts and things you have to take in consideration and be okay with it. Otherwise, again, this is probably not the niche for you.
Right. So do you sometimes have people forgetting that you're a neutral, like parties, they forget that you're a neutral in your situation? How does that play out? Do people struggle with it?
I'm sure they struggle in general. I don't think it's necessarily with me. I think they want one party might campaign for me to be on their side.
Sure.
But thanks to our neutrality training through the program, I've learned different ways to kind of work through that. I'm pretty diplomatic as a rule. I've been for a long time. But the added layer of the emotion here has really taught me how to kind of navigate that better.
Right.
So yes, it does happen, but I've so far been successful in quashing it.
So, yeah. To say you're an expert seems like a just ridiculous understatement. So do judges appoint you as a CDRE?
Not necessarily. I've had a few judges reach out and just ask me a little bit more about what a CDRE is and what we can provide. But 9 times out of 10, they don't want anything to do with the marital residence if they can avoid it.
Yes.
So typically we're going to be appointed by the attorneys into the agreement. Over the last 6 months, I've had a handful of divorcing parties hear about me and recommend me to their attorneys, and then has resulted in me listing the marital property. So, but that is not my initial route. I'm not blasting it on the socials that, look at me, I can help you in your divorce.
Right.
That is not the way a CDRE is conducting business. We are here to provide resources to the family law community, and if we can help their clients with their recommendation, that's the way we go about it. We are not going into public records and marketing to potential divorcing couples.
Right.
We are not doing that, and that's part of our code of ethics, is that is one thing we're not doing. And to that end, we are also not dual agents in the process. So if we're listing a divorce listing, we are not representing a buyer in that listing either. So we're always exclusively representing the divorcing parties and representing the marital residents. We also will not buy our own listings. We have the inside scoop, and if you're a person who is accumulating a portfolio of real estate, you might think this is a great opportunity. It may be, but as a CDRE, you will not be doing that in this case. So that's one, I think a lot of attorneys appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And so that has been, and the last thing that I'll say is we will never disclose that it's a divorce listing. We will never disclose that.
Right.
And what I've found in our market, when I'm representing a buyer and I'm going to show a property or make an offer on a property, the first thing the agent will tell me is that it's a divorce. And to me, as a buyer's agent, that gives me huge advantage.
Absolutely.
Right? Because we know that they're trying to liquidate.
Right.
But really deserves the sellers.
100%.
And hello, where's your equity? Like, your equity's diminished as soon as that word comes out of their mouth, right?
Exactly.
So we really try to protect the equity and maintain confidentiality.
Well, and also, too, if telling people that the property is the subject of a divorce, could that potentially scare off buyers thinking that, well, I love this house, but I love 3 other ones, and I don't want to get in the middle of somebody's divorce situation. Does that happen?
No, not really.
Really?
Really, they'd rather make offers because they're like,
Because they're going
"Ooh,
to think they're going to take advantage or
ooh,
get
what can
the
we get
benefit
for
of
this house?"
Yes.
So it's never really
Interesting.
been a question of let's walk away from it because it's a divorce.
Okay.
Most buyers, my job as a buyer's agent is to ask as many questions as possible to the listing agent representing the property to see how I can position and craft a strategic offer on
Right.
behalf of the buyer. But as a listing agent on a divorce listing, I'm certainly going to keep as much of that close to the vest. They only need to know what they need to know
Right.
to make the strongest offer they can.
So I started to ask you a question a few minutes ago, and I just want to swing back to it because I think to a lot of people, they don't think about or are not aware of the types of things that we address in our real estate side agreements. Because like anything, the devil is truly in the details. And so can you just tell us examples of issues that are addressed in the real estate side agreement and that you help people navigate?
Yes. So one would be the date that the property goes onto the market.
Mm-hmm.
We would prefer that the language being written into the agreement reflects the deferring to the real estate expert. Because when I get the real estate agreement, the side agreement, I have not yet seen the house, know the address, talked to anybody, don't know about improvements. There's nothing I can do the moment I get the agreement. So I usually get the agreement when it's too close to the date that's actually listed in the agreement.
I can see that.
And so what we would rather see is just language around, for example, the parties have 7 days from the date of signing the side agreement to reach out to the CDRE.
Right.
And then within 7 days after that, the CDRE, the walkthrough with the CDRE at the house and the intake calls should be done within that 7 days. Mm-hmm. And then that is where the timeline is dictated. Mm-hmm. Once they've connected with me, which is typically a 2-part, it's usually I'm calling one and then calling the other. And then I have to do a walkthrough with either one or both. And then we're deciding on what our timeline is going to look like. And then I provide like a sample milestone timeline for the parties so they understand what their drop dead dates look like. And of course, it's fluid because life. But that's the only way that it makes sense.
Right.
And so that's one big one. Another big one is before we even get to the agreement, if the attorneys or the mediator is recommending us to the case, we're appointed to the case, and it's signed off, like it's stamped and rubber stamped or whatever by the parties, your next step is to let me know.
Seems so obvious.
You would not believe how many calls I get from clients who say, my attorney told me you're my agent. Okay, great. Who's your attorney? I forget.
Oh.
And at this point, I don't know their names. I don't know where the property is. Am I the right fit for the geography?
Right.
I don't know any of this. So I'm like, well, great, thank you. Can you think a minute, like who, maybe the opposing counsel's attorney? Can you think about that? Who's the opposing counsel? So a lot of times I get that. So we want to make sure that I know about it before they call me.
That seems important. Would not have thought of that.
It's helpful.
Yes.
I mean, I can muddle through, but it's helpful.
So what you don't want to see in a real estate side agreement is things like we agree that we're going to list the house at X amount and we will reduce it by X percentage every X number of days.
Yes, because you're continually deferring to the real estate expert.
Yes.
So because it's all based on market trends, on the data that we can access, we also are trying to price strategically ahead of the market, not behind. We also want to create a bidding situation and not chase the market down where you're constantly seeing a red arrow down next to the price that you set.
Right.
The goal is not to reduce, ever. But setting the parameters inside of an agreement that says every 30 days you'll reduce by 2% or something like that. 30 days is a lifetime in real estate. We do not list and sit. That's not what our policy is in my company. We are proactive. We're calling agents, finding out what traction they're getting on the competing listings around us. We want to make sure that we're responding in real time to the market. So 30 days is forever, and 2% doesn't apply across the board.
Right.
That makes no sense to me.
Yes,
So please leave those out.
You got it. Sometimes I see those. We'll inherit a case, and I'll see it, and I'll be like, well, I'm not a CDRE.
Right.
I'm not an RE. I'm not a CD.
It just doesn't make sense.
Right. Right.
For practical purposes.
Right.
Yeah. I can see why theoretically it would be put in.
For sure.
But it doesn't make sense today.
Well, and I guess the theory too, a lot of the reason why I think folks put it in there is because they don't want to rely on these people to agree in a situation that presumptively
Absolutely.
they may likely not be able to. But then that seems like the logical reason to have a CDRE who's a neutral.
Correct. And then a lot of times what we'll do is when things start heating up between the parties, when we're either revving up for market or we're starting to see offers coming in and they're deviating from their agreement that they both signed, I do a lot of cutting and pasting to remind people what they agreed to. So it's really great to be able to cut and paste the right language back to them.
Yes, so you don't want it to be all muffed up from the beginning.
I do not.
Got it. So one other question, Jill. Do you find yourself when you're working in these cases that involve divorces, is it for the purpose of valuing the property, selling it, either or, both? What is your typical role?
Typically, it's been to list the property. But I would say right now it's 60-40 listing.
Okay.
40% of the time I'm getting requests to evaluate. Usually it's a desktop valuation. I'm not actually getting into the property because it's contentious. Someone's not letting people in. They're not even letting appraisers in, things of that nature. But the attorneys are kind of like, we need to have a more realistic value than what the aggregates online are showing because, hello, they've never seen the house. So typically, if they're asking for an evaluation of the property, I'm doing an in-depth research, and that typically will take, anywhere from 1 to 4 hours, depending on what they're asking me to do and what size property. A lot of times, I'm getting calls on 4 or 5 properties to evaluate,
Right.
As they're kind of, getting rid of everything and dissolving their estate. So. I would say it's 60-40 right now listings, but again, here is a resource. So they will use me potentially for valuations and then sometimes to also take the listing. It's just going to depend on the case.
Right. So a lot of people just go to Zillow or Realtor.com or, I don't know, Truly, all those sites. Do you find those values to be reliable?
We're seeing differentials with online valuations anywhere between 17 and 35%.
That's huge.
So no.
Yes.
Please call
Right.
a real estate expert to help you with getting a baseline valuation.
That was the not so mixed message in the asking of that question, because I think a lot of people do. They just go to Zillow or whatever and grab a number, and then they could be shortchanging themselves, or
or setting improper expectations.
Right.
Which that's the majority of the time.
Right.
They're improper expectations, whether it's too much equity that you can expect or too little equity you can expect. Like there is a lot of reason why you want an expert to help you with that. And again, it is not a science, right? We don't know how much someone is going to pay for your property and how much equity you're actually going to walk away with until we're on the open market and we see what the buyer buyer's market, how they're responding to it.
Right.
So until we're out there, we don't know.
Right.
We're basing it on very recent sales, and most of the time what's pending, what someone has already went under contract for and was willing to pay for a like property like yours, and what we're competing with. So it's all forward thinking and for the most part, and so that requires an expert.
I personally am of the opinion that everything related to divorce requires an expert
Absolutely.
in the field. So, and when you're talking about dealing with oftentimes your most valuable asset.
That's right.
It seems like the need for expertise in the field is particularly high.
As a CDRE, I just want to be part of the expert community that supports family law. And that's really the ultimate goal.
So what else do we need to know about the benefits of a CDRE in divorce situations, Jill, as an expert?
So I mentioned that we provide the desktop active and market analysis,
Yes.
right? The market analysis. Also, on the front end of your mediation conversations, talking about equity, we want to make sure that there's no additional liens on the title, which sometimes pop up when we're
Yes.
midstream. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought I was getting this much, and now this lien has to be paid at closing in order for us to move forward. So we have been, we offer that service where you can just call or email, and if you need a title pulled, a title exam done, our attorneys will do that. And, sometimes the parties don't remember that there's a mechanics lien from 20 years ago
Sure.
that somebody just left on your house to
Right.
get paid. Who cares if they're out of business? It's still on there.
Right.
So it needs to be cleared. We've also been in a situation where one party did not know the other party took out a HELOC and spent all the equity. So that changes the
Yes.
conversation with your client,
Yes, it
right?
does indeed.
So, and I got a call, like a panicked call from a partner about that. So about one of the cases they were working on. So we certainly don't want to, we want to prevent that from happening. So we offer title searches or title exams. And then we are also providing continuing ed to family law attorneys about how to better partner with CDREs. Obviously, offering the language piece of things, which we did here.
Yes, you did.
And also talking about how the real estate market will impact equity, just as a whole. So providing education, providing resources, and market analysis.
So is utilizing a CDRE required in Georgia?
No, absolutely not. The parties at the end of the day make their decision, who they want to work with, who they want to hire. And so this is just about being able to support this type of listing in a more impactful way, I think. And again, nobody's required to work with us. We just want them to know we're here.
Right. And so do we.
Yeah.
So we're going to provide the details at the end of the podcast, but if someone wanted to get a hold of you, say one of our listeners wants to reach out like we were talking about before, what's the best way for them to get into contact with you?
I would say the best way is through email. I know it seems very old school.
These days, right?
You
Not
can
to
also,
me.
So email, but I do get DMs on my Instagram feed at Jill Heineck Homes. So sometimes I'll get a DM there, but most of the time it's through email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Jill, you, as usual, are just completely invaluable, and I'm so grateful that you were able to and agreed to spend this time with us today.
Absolutely. Thank
Share
you.
your knowledge and your expertise. And this is going to wrap up our session. I have a feeling we're going to try to convince Jill to come back. But I just really want to, sorry, I don't know what's going on with my voice today. Thank you for joining us, spending your afternoon with us, and thank you all for watching and listening. If you hear or see this episode and know of somebody who could benefit from the guidance and expertise of a CDRE, Jill's your girl, and please share the episode. And thank you for joining us today. We'll see you soon.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. The Hastings Shadmary Show is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Our email address is podcast@hsfamilylaw.com. Come find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Hastings Shadmary.
The Hastings Shadmary Show is a production of Hastings Shadmary Family Law and 1066 Productions. It is produced and edited by Ned Hastings.